Good evening. Thank you for coming for tonight's program. We're excited to have you. My name is Kelly Daly, and I am the Director of Public Programs here at the National Museum of Women in the Arts. Tonight is our first Fresh Talks back in the renovated building, and we're so excited to have you all here and also our panelists. The Fresh Talk series is one of our signature programs here at NMWA and part of our Women Arts and Social Change program. This season of programming is focused on women artists, creators, curators, and designers who are working to bring equity to the forefront through their work and practice. In tonight's program, Digital Futures, you'll hear from leading digital artists, curators, and creatives who are using digital platforms and innovative technologies in their practice. In the spirit of this evening's topic, ChatGPT said, and I quote, "Digital futures generally refers to the anticipated evolving developments of the digital realm, encompassing technology, data, communication, and various other aspects of the digital landscape. It is a broader term that invites exploration from various angles, including technological, social, and economic and ethical dimensions." End quote. Pretty good, but I'm eager to hear what you all have to say. They'll discuss the creation of their work, sales, and the business side of working in digital mediums, and most importantly, the state of gender equity in the digital sphere and how it affects their practice. Our panel will be moderated by Luba Elliott, includes Damara Ingles, Krista Kim, and Nyla Hayes. The panel will culminate at 5 p.m., and then I invite you all to our cocktail hour down on the mezzanine, where you'll be able to ask our panelists more questions and engage in a conversation. Thank you, and I'll let them get going.
Great, thank you, Kelly. So now we're going to start with just a few words saying about our practice and showing some work so you have a better idea of what we do and where we come from. And so my name is Luba Elliott, and I'm a curator, researcher, speaker, writer. You know, I think as a creative practitioner, you just wear so many different hats. So I do that, and I specialize in AI art. I've been doing that since 2016, so for a few years before the recent hype started. And now I'll just show some slides of some of the exhibitions that I've done. So this is kind of some early GAN works from an artist called Mario Klingerman that I showed in an old Cambridge college in the UK, and things as part of a conference on AI safety. And I remember it was nice kind of showing some of this very kind of new digital work in a printed format and in a very old space. And I got into this field actually because I didn't study art or AI, really, but I started building a community around creative applications of AI, and I ran a meetup where I would invite artists and researchers to kind of present their work, and this is an image from that. And that sort of led to lots of opportunities in curating and organizing events, like also this Art and AI festival that I host in my home city of Leicester in the UK, where we try and display kind of cutting-edge AI art in shopping centers and sort of various other surroundings in the city to engage as many people as possible with kind of this new technology. And this is an example from one of the artists I commissioned for a festival I organized in the Netherlands called Impact. And the name of the artist is Anna Riddler, and she's quite an established artist in AI art now. And what's special about her work is that she really focuses on data sets. And here she made lots of photographs of tulips, trained an AI on them, and made this kind of beautiful video of kind of the AI-generated tulips. And I'm quite known for working with the technical community. There's this AI technical conference, quite academic, called NeurIPS, and I've been running an AI art gallery and a workshop for that for around 4 years, from 2017 to 2020. And I've also done a little bit of work with NFTs, like I think many digital practitioners in this space. And this is just an example of the NFT exhibition I did with the Feral File. And I think that's probably it for my slides. So now I'll pass on to Damara.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Damara Ingles. I'm a metaverse designer and strategist. And my practice focuses a lot on the notion of intersectional digitization. And for me, intersectional digitization is basically making sense of my own identity of the complexity of my own identity as an African, Black, and queer woman in the diaspora and in the metaverse. And above it all, for me, really focuses on the notion that the metaverse or Web3 are not just spaces for entertainment, they're actually spaces that people will be occupying more and more in the future. So they should be spaces of empathy and vulnerability. This is just some examples of my practice. And this is a specific piece in which I engage in intersectional digitization. And this piece directly took inspiration from different ethnical groups of my home country in Angola. This is one of the latest projects that I worked in recently. This one is actually one of the few NFTs that I have produced. And once again, it was inspired by a national flower of my home country in Angola as well. Another format of my practice is what I like to call re-artifact, which is basically refilling the gap left by African art that was stolen during colonialism. And it's just a very fun process of taking seemingly eternal symbols and transforming them into spontaneous and sort of short-lived moments. And once again, there's always this connection and inspiration directly from my home country in Angola. And yes, that's basically it. Thank you. I'm going to pass on to Nyla.
Well, I personally hate this part because I'm not really good at introducing myself, so I did write something down. But hi, my name is Nyla Hayes. I'm a 14-year-old digital artist and curator. I'm known for my signature long necky style, which I can show here, which is inspired by my love for dinosaurs, specifically the Brontosaurus dinosaur. But I didn't know how to pronounce it when I was 4, so I called them long neckies. And I also love being a woman, and I love having, just being a woman and having the powerful energy of females around me throughout my life. So I just put the two together and I made my long neckies. Now, go to the notes part. So, since 2021, my art has generated over 4 million sales. I received numerous awards, like partnerships with Time Magazine and Cadillac. And today, my inspiration for both my art and animation comes from storytelling and giving back. These 3 pictures that you see here were made this year both to tell a story about giving back and also raising money for charity. To date, I've been able to raise over 100K for different charities with my art. So yeah, that's just a little bit about me.
So happy to sit beside Nyla. I've been in touch with her through Web3 online for many years now, and we're finally here together, sitting.
It's an honor.
So nice to see you. My name is Krista Kim, and I've been a digital artist since 2013. And I started my artistic practice as a painter, and I decided to leave painting and pursue digital in the middle of my Master's of Fine Art studies, which was very shocking to the supervisors. They didn't know what to do with me. And I decided that light is the new ink, that I was always using my iPhone and screens to communicate. So I thought, how can I use the screen to communicate Zen? Because I'd lived in Japan for 3.5 years in Tokyo. And it was my encounter with the Kyoto and the Roanji Temple Garden, which is one of the most sacred Zen gardens in Japan, where I experienced an immersive experience of Zen and the power of Zen And I thought, wow, it's remarkable and profound. How can I create a Zen experience through the screen, through the digital technology that we're using every day? And so that became really the focus of my practice. And in 2020, during the height of the COVID crisis, I was, we're all under lockdown. And so I was inspired to create a place that I can escape to, that very much is influenced by Japanese architecture, by Zen, and my artwork, to create an architectural project in the metaverse that I can escape to in virtual reality. So this project was created over a few months, between March and May of 2020. And it was really a project that inspired me. And so I called it the Mars House. And it wasn't until December of 2020 when I was really concerned about the state of money printing and just the overall macroeconomy, the outlook, I began to research Bitcoin. And then I began to research Ethereum. And I Googled blockchain for art. Because as a digital artist, there was no way of proving the provenance or the ownership of a digital file. So truly, whenever I sent a WeTransfer of my precious art, I felt like I was, nervous and anxious that someone would take this file and print it, recreate it. There's no protections. And then when I realized that blockchain technology can actually identify the true ownership of a digital file, that's when my life changed. So I actually created the Mars House in March, discovered NFTs December of 2020, and I immediately signed up for Super Rare. Super Rare is a NFT platform and one of the pioneering ones. And that was in January I had applied, and then I was accepted for February. So I minted my first NFT in February. I have so much digital art, as you know, in my archives. And so I thought, okay, I'm really going to start using this medium and understanding the landscape. And when I saw that NFTs were very much in the nascent stage, very low memory, 100 megabyte files, JPEGs, MP4 files, I thought, okay, we're so early, but NFTs are going to become 3D digital assets that are powered by AI. I kind of knew that would happen down the line. But then I thought, oh gosh, I have the Mars House. I wonder if the world is ready for a digital metaverse home to be sold as an NFT, where the owner would actually be able to take the 3D assets, they own the 3D assets, and then create a metaverse home they can visit, have meetings, enjoy as a Zen experience, as a lifestyle. So I decided to mint the house. And as you can see, I wanted to create a space of Zen. The substrates of the ceiling and the floors incorporate my gradient, meditative, Zen, shifting gradient video art installations. So it's basically like a sculptural representation and architectural of my practice. So this house, when it was presented on Super Rare on auction, early March 2021, someone made a bid. Someone understood, because it was really a hypothesis. I didn't know if it was going to sell. And so AOI is the owner, and before he made the final bid on the piece, he contacted me on Twitter, on DMs. So he asked me, okay, Krista, so is this a house for the metaverse? I had confirmed that it was, and then he decided to purchase the piece. And it was a record sale on Super Rare for $500,000. And that, in turn, caused a bit of media attention because people were asking, first of all, what's the intention? And why would somebody pay that much for a digital file or a video? They didn't understand that this is actually a digital asset. And then, of course, opening up the question of, the digital physical, application of NFTs as a proof of ownership for an actual, asset like real estate. So this is all sort of like many questions that the Mars House opened up and new possibilities. My work, as I'd mentioned, is really about engaging with the screen in the way that someone would create a Zen experience, a meditative experience. So I actually did a large-scale installation with Times Square Arts. February of 22, the world was coming out of COVID. And this was the first activation since COVID lockdowns that Times Square Arts was initiating. And they had asked me to do this takeover of Times Square. So it was every night at midnight for the month of February 2022. For 3 minutes, there was a meditative Zen experience, my interpretation of Rowenji Temple Garden in Times Square. And that was a profound experience. And that is an introduction to my practice. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for introducing yourselves and presenting your works. And now I guess we'll dive into the questions. And I think as Kelly mentioned in this panel, we'll try to cover areas of like creating art and then selling art and then gender equity. And we'll start with creating art. And I think I always wanted to know like what attracted you to work with technology as an artist, and how has your practice evolved over the years? Because of course, like new technologies keep coming along, so do you like jump on to work with them, or do you kind of stick with one form of technology? So like what inspired you to work with technology?
So in my experience, I come from a fashion background. I studied fashion design, I did some modeling as well. And I went to university to graduate in fashion media practice and criticism. And it was in the very first day of class that I was faced with the list of everything that is wrong about fashion when it comes to sustainability, when it comes to representation. So I started thinking about how can we have one single object, physical object, and create different digital auras, different digital souls for that object so that it can be used on social media without further, environmental impact. So that's how it really started for me. And it was also a way of connecting the sort of cultural value that fashion has in Angolan culture as well. So we share or we gift each other's textiles that are given from I don't know how many generations ago. So the value of cloth, and especially the value of one single object being owned by different people, is what really inspired me to try and tell the story of everybody that touched that object without necessarily changing the object. So it's kind of a mixture between fashion technology and that sort of cyber spirituality for me.
Beautiful. Okay, well, for me, what attracted me to art is the same thing that actually attracted me to technology, which is connection. And I feel like I put the two worlds together at a pretty early age, around the age of 9. And I remember at that time, I was really obsessed with getting a phone. So, a phone, it connects you with people and it connects you with the world, but my parents weren't having it. So I had to come up with a little plan to get what I wanted at the time. And at the time, I was doing art still, so I was doing physical art. And every day I would do arts and crafts, so it was paper all over my house. So after a while, I realized my parents, it was getting kind of hard for them to keep cleaning it up. So I was like, okay, if you guys give me a phone with a stencil, I can just do digital art on there, and you guys don't have to clean up all this paper. It's a win-win for both of us. Surprisingly, they went for it. And that's kind of the start of my digital journey. So after that, I started dabbling with different, I guess you can call it platforms I used. I used, it's called Paper Draw app on my app phone. But, after that, that's kind of where my journey began. Yep.
I like that. So that's great. I actually, while I was enrolled in my master's program in Singapore, I was really reevaluating, where will my art practice take me, and what do I want to create? And I knew that I wanted it to be relevant with the current technology. And because I was not writing anymore, I was always on my phone or always on a digital device, I thought, well, I want to express humanity through the digital realm. And I was also witnessing how, the power of, these Web 2 companies and surveillance capitalism. I knew something was wrong because I was feeling FOMO. I was feeling this narcissistic, sociopathic, tendencies and behaviors that everyone was participating in because that is what is supported on the platforms. And I thought, wow, it's the first time ever in history that the technology and the platforms are driving human behavior, and it's not art and culture. Okay, so I thought that's dangerous. And we need more art and culture and humanities to drive, our culture. And it shouldn't be determined by swipes and, likes and all that stuff. So I wrote a manifesto on techism, encouraging artists who are even not even in digital, but just consider the medium of emerging technology as a place to express humanity and to collaborate with technicians or engineers, just to create humanity and human connection with emerging technology so that we can create more humane technology in the end and influence the development of where it goes.
Yeah, makes sense. But yeah, I'm so impressed that, the phone and all these platforms played such an important role in both your, Nyla, and Krista's practices. It's like not something I expected. But yeah, anyway, in terms of your creative process, I was wondering, how do you go about developing an artwork, and how do you balance sort of the technical and the artistic aspects of your work?
I can go first?
Yeah, okay.
Well, I feel like as a creative person and as an artist, I can't really turn on and off my creativity. It's like a switch. So I go ahead and just practice being creative in the way of my life. I view life as art, and I believe that, you should never be afraid to try new things to express your creativity. But to explain my relationship with my creativity, I view it kind of like this. I feel like creativity is an act of love, and art is kind of tied to love. And I believe that the skills that people possess, the tools and the skills you have while drawing or creating, is tied to respect. So when I'm creating, I just kind of let my love for what I'm making flow. And I would just put it out there like that in the past, but now I go back a little bit and try to perfect it as much as I can now, as growing as an artist, to, show respect to the craft and to myself. So that's kind of how my relationship with art is and my creativity.
Oh, okay. I love what you just said about creativity being an act of love. I completely agree with that. I think that it's love towards others is also love towards ourselves. And it's a lot about looking within as well. For me, I mean, creativity, again, it's a muscle, and mine is always overstimulated and always distracted and looking at different things. Generally speaking, I always start with a pen and a paper, although my work is mostly digital and 3D designed. The pen and the paper will always be my best friends for random ideas in the middle of the night, random connections. I love having a theme or an inspiration and then just looking for it in the world, right? So I know that this piece is about I don't know, creativity, or it's about love. And then I'm going to go outside and look for it in the smallest details. I think serendipity is part of my workflow, which makes it extremely chaotic. But for me, just walking around and seeing, I don't know, a daisy flower or a dandelion growing from a concrete building. For me, that's like, oh wow, I'm so inspired by this moment. Or seeing the reflection of light on water. So this is how I always start. It's always by finding the elements or allowing the elements that will inspire me to find me as well. I just manifest it and hope they come towards me. And then just put everything down on the pen and paper until, of course, I get into the 3D design. I would say that the relationship between the creativity and the more technical aspect, it's very complex for me because I tend to think big and my skills are not as big as my imagination. So there's always like the need to find a certain balance, but it also allows me to push myself further, to look for different solutions as well. And sometimes the technical process inspires or influences the creative process as well. Sometimes I'm doing or creating something on Blender, and by mistake I hit enter or I change a value, and I love it, so that's it. That's what I'm going with. So I love having fun. I love having fun with my creativity and using it in a very instinctive, animal-like way. I like to feel it, I think, like sort of chasing me around.
Wow. That's wonderful. When you hear digital artists talk about their practice, it is expressing the humanity through the digital, and that's not a usual description that you make about digital technology. Most people talk about digital technology and it's boring, and it's not something that you associate with humanity. But that's exactly what we're doing, and it's a very important work actually, because the way I see it is we create the human connection of any technology and we make it humane. We force that connection to happen. So, for me, I like to analyze, the technology, and then I like to ask myself, how can we use that technology to benefit humanity? How can we make it so that it's beautiful? Or how can we make it so it actually heals people? In my sense, I love to create Zen experiences. So an example would be that I collaborate. I would find experts in AI, generative technology, or I would find experts, in building 3D assets, like for metaverse, and I would collaborate to basically inject and conduct, just sort of like direct the direction of the creation. And it's all about collaboration. And a lot of artists are reticent about digital technology because of the technical aspects, but that shouldn't be a barrier. I believe that going forward, there should be the breaking down of silos between arts, science, and technology. That in fact, we should be communicating and collaborating, co-creating. And that's how we're going to advance our humanity and the ideas and concepts. Right now, I'm actually collaborating with company called Tenbeo out of Brussels, and they have created an AI generative technology that is connected to your heartbeat, because everyone has a unique heartbeat signature, like a fingerprint. And this technology, when you connect it, connect the human heart and the symbolism and the meaning behind that of yourself and expressing your own humanity, and then of course combining that with others and the unifying force of that. I'm creating an art installation for Art Dubai that's commissioned by Julius Baer next March to communicate the humanity behind AI generative technology. So this kind of collaboration, I think, is important going forward.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. It's always nice to see kind of the worlds of art and technology merge. And yeah, let's move on to the business side of art. I don't know how you all feel about the commercial aspects. And yeah, it seems to me that all of you have at least dabbled with NFTs, with all these kind of non-fungible tokens that you can kind of sell online. And yeah, I was also curious, like, why did you begin working with NFTs? And was this primarily a business decision, or were you kind of excited to do something like creative with the NFT format? Like, what drew you to it? Whoever wants to start.
Whoever wants to start.
Well, I know for me personally, I've been doing art for years of my life, I guess you could say. So I've been wanting to put my art out there for a really long time. And my inspiration really was validation from others, because at 9, I thought that to be an artist, you had to sell your art and other people had to see it. So my art was digital at the time, so I didn't know how to sell it. But luckily, when I turned 12, or when I was 12, I got introduced to NFTs by my uncle, and that was finally a platform where I could, put my art out there and sell it. So automatically, that's kind of was my inspiration for it. But I feel like later on in the community, I realized I really didn't have to have validation to be an artist, but having a community that supports you and shows you that your art is valuable to people and it means something to people's life is a really beautiful thing. So that was really my inspiration.
Yes, well, for me, it was more just the equivalence of what an NFT is versus just an image floating around the internet. And this idea of ownership, the equivalence of being basically, an old signature in an antique painting. And for me, makes absolute sense. As digital artists, of course, we need to own our work and connect with it and allow people to connect with it, knowing where it comes from and its worth and the inspiration that comes from it as well. In my personal practice, I went into NFTs more like by accident. So I got a lot of work from brands or commissions, and it's an outlet and the medium that they definitely direct me towards in terms of selling and expressing my art. When I work as a strategist, so I also work as in digital fashion strategy, for example, and in that sense, the NFTs are, fundamental and integral for people to feel that they actually own that piece, right? And sometimes we sell digital pieces as well, so it's a physical pair of shoes that comes with the digital twin, or that comes with or that is in the blockchain, and that really enhances not just the monetary value of the piece, but I think the contemporary understanding that digital is part of our forms of craft today.
I think that NFTs definitely, in the way that Naila and Damara have described it, are very valid. And NFTs, the first use case of NFTs were through art that was sort of widely known, widely accepted. But moving forward, I actually believe that NFTs and blockchain will save humanity, will save democracy, because the convergence of emerging technology this is the age of acceleration and accelerated change. And AI is a potential threat. And what's happening is, we have a culture of surveillance capitalism where you have centralized powers pooling and owning our data without our permission, without recognizing that data is power and that we are basically giving away our power and data to companies that are monetizing it in trillions of dollars. And I think that blockchain is a solution to that problem because it allows us to self-custody and own our own data. And then that means that we're protecting our human rights, that we are protecting the new definition of a human being, which is that you are your data, that data is a private property, and that we should have the right to self-custody and monetize on our own data, each and every one of us. And that has to be recognized in the Charter of Human Rights. And then you move on to the topic of AI, where AI, insurgency of our identity, our IP, deepfakes, we are going to see a lot of problems emerging from AI very soon. Within 5 years, the world will be so radically different from this moment. And so what blockchain allows us to do is to protect us by connecting the biometrics of our heartbeat, for example, which is a unique identifier in the blockchain that allows us to identify, that is me, that is my likeness on YouTube, verified. Verify the truth. We need a layer of truth and authenticity and verification. And only blockchain and NFTs can offer that. And so this is going to save us from absolute chaos and dystopia.
Yeah, I think that's a very good angle. I'm also, I think, quite excited about the intersection between kind of blockchain and AI, because as you say, there are so many kind of problems in AI that I think the blockchain can really help dealing with. And yeah, sort of still thinking about the business side of art, I was wondering, how do you go about marketing and promoting your work? Do you build communities? How do you get your art out there into the world?
Well, I would say that for me it's a very organic process. I've been building sort of a digital fashion community for a while now. And now that I'm sort of going into the NFT space, it's a different group of people as well. And then the digital art space is also a different subset of people. So it's really interesting to put my art out there and see how completely different people react to it. And, sorry, what? I got lost.
Yeah, about marketing art.
Oh, yeah, so for me, it's just a very organic process of posting my work, of maybe contacting people that I know that have purchased it before. If it's an NFT, for example, I can contact previous people that bought my work as well. But generally speaking, yes, it's very open-ended for me. And because I work a lot with digital fashion and specific with fashion brands, a big part of the marketing normally is in their hands. So I'm a little bit freed from that.
Nice.
Well, it's actually kind of similar to you, actually, a little bit. Instead of having a marketing team, I have my parents that are my marketing team. So I have to say my process is a bit different. I feel like I don't have the whole brunt of selling it based off of them just letting me be the artist and let me really just focus on my creativity. But we, do sell it on the blockchain. We sell it on, OpenSea or a platform of that nature, or we post it on, Instagram, like Twitter, socials, basically the classic things. But I have to give all of that to my team, really.
You're being very humble, Nyla, because, here's the thing. She's created this long, necky community, global, and she and her family have created an enterprise around herself as a brand. And so the community supports her as the head, the artist, but then what she's now doing is she's creating a media, like different media projects, whether it's a new cartoon show, you can do anything you want with the brand that you created. So that's the beauty of what NFTs allow creators to do, is to run their own creative empire and have the freedom to do what they want to do with their community. For me, I really am doing a lot of public art installations and commissions. It has been a crypto winter, right? So, a slight one. And, things are going to come back, I believe. But, in the meantime, for me, I'm just creating these projects like the installation I am at Art Dubai, not really for like I want to sell a lot of art, but more about I want to make this impact in society. Like, I want to show and demonstrate to people what the technology can do to open some minds and perhaps make, some ripples in the pond, because I want to contribute to where the technology is bringing us and the outcomes.
Yeah, makes sense. And now I'd like to ask about gender equity, because we, after all, are in the very kind of special museum. I don't think I've been anywhere like it before. So, I wanted to ask, does technology make it easier to succeed as a woman in the arts, or harder? Like, what do you think?
You want me to?
Yeah,
okay. Well, I can speak from, I guess, from the Web3 space, really. I feel like it's going to be hard in general for anyone, but I feel like, it just depends on what success is to you, really. And I feel like with the NFT space, I feel like anyone really can reach a certain level of success and be able to, not really show their identity fully, or they could choose whatever they want. So I think that's a really cool playing field that I haven't really seen in a lot of different industries. But I feel like the higher your dreams are, it's always going to be a bit harder. So I feel like it's hard, but I feel like it's worth it, honestly. Yeah.
Yeah, you can.
I don't really think about that. I just do. I'm not a kind of person that dwells on hardships or dwells on the challenge. I don't think, it's hard for me because I'm this or that. I'm not going to be that person. I'm just going to pursue what I'm going to pursue. But I do feel like Web3 is a very diverse, very open, very accepting community, and it's nice to see that. The next generation is certainly different from older generations in terms of even the question of gender. It's more fluid. Fluidity is the future. So it's not a question I really dwell upon.
Yes, for me it really depends on what the spectrum of technology that we're talking about. But even just social media makes it easier for a woman to succeed or a female artist to succeed, because they have the opportunity to connect directly with their communities. They have the opportunity to connect with people that never met them before, and they have the opportunity to put their work out there without having to rely on more, patriarchal and structural institutions. I would definitely say that coming from a fashion background, the transition from physical fashion or analog fashion to digital fashion for me was absolutely impressive. I mean, it's not a surprise to anyone that most of fashion designers are male, most of fashion designers are white, most of fashion designers completely, invent the silhouette of the modern woman that they somehow dreamed about. I don't know how they go about it, to be honest. I don't know what is the process. I don't know what is the justification. And somehow it completely drew me in, right? So Alexander McQueen, John Galliano, these are the designers that really brought me into this space of fashion. But in digital fashion, I find it to be the complete opposite. It's a very femme, woman-based community that I have, at least that I engage with within digital fashion, with amazing collectives like the DigiGirl collective, that is like a collective of digital artists from all over the world. We are a group of over 200 women. We have a WhatsApp group, a Telegram group, an Instagram group, where you basically, can be at 2 a.m. and have a problem with Blender and just text them and someone will send you a tutorial. Or if you have a really cool project, you can also share it in the Instagram. I mean, they don't care if it's cool or not, but you can share it in the Instagram and of course have a bigger audience. So in that sense, yes, different layers of technology make it easier, at least for me as a digital artist and as a digital fashion practitioner, to succeed, but mostly because of the environment and the community that I'm engaged within, that it's very, very much femme-focused.
Wow, interesting. Certainly, I think in my career, when I was, I guess, an emerging curator in this space, it helped me a lot, I think, being female, because in AI, there's not many women. And yeah, frequently I was, I think, quite visible, and I'd be invited to a lot of these tech conferences also to talk about art because it's exciting. And then once you've done a few of these things, you get more invites. And yeah, I guess for my next and possibly final question, yeah, I wanted to ask if you had any advice for any artists or collectors or creatives that we have any in the audience.
I would say, like, for artists, I heard this phrase, this quote a few weeks ago. I don't know from where, but it just made so much sense for me. And it's just to say, act as if you are free, because you are. And we talk a lot about digital art and sharing it on social media and creating communities, for example. But these platforms have very strict guidelines and rules, for example. It sort of bites away this creative freedom, right? So as a female digital artist, I can't design something that involves a nipple. And for me, that's crazy that I'm not able to exert that freedom on that platform in the 21st century. So for me, that's the thing, is act as if you are free, because you are. And if you are canceled, reported, flagged, your profile is taken down, you can always create a new one or print it and stick it on a wall, but don't allow the guidelines of these platforms to silence your sensibility.
Good advice.
Well, mine is very simple. I have 3 mottos that I go with throughout my creative process and how I think. First thing is, it's going to sound kind of cliche, but just do what you love. That's one of the biggest things I've been doing since the whole journey. The second thing is, just create relationships with people. It's really beneficial, and it will help you in the long run. I made a lot of amazing connections in the NFT space throughout my journey. And last but not least, I would say just bring value to this world. So those are my 3 things.
Such wise words.
Yeah.
I think a mental health practice is essential for every person, human being. As an artist, I went through a real state of depression and anxiety in 2013 when I was in art school. And so I began to practice transcendental meditation, and it basically, got rid of all of those issues for me. And it has enriched my life in ways that I cannot even begin to describe. So if you can just have a very strong, regular mental health practice, mindfulness or meditation, that is essential. And that will also help you find your radical, authentic self, connect with that and express that. And don't be afraid of what other people think. Make art for yourself. If it's good for you and it looks good to you, that's all you need. You don't need outside validation. You don't need that. As long as you're expressing yourself, being true to yourself, then that's your art.
Wow, thank you. So much wisdom, and I think I really appreciate it. And yeah, I guess now it's time for us to wrap up, and Kelly will tell us where to go and what to do.
Let's give everyone another round of applause. That was extremely inspiring. It was wonderful to hear all of your perspectives and just to hear about your practice and everything. So thank you. We really appreciate it for our first Fresh Talk back in the renovated building. We're thankful for all of you to be here. And now, if you'd like to join us, we have our Catalyst Cocktail Hour, which will be happening on the mezzanine. We have drinks and snacks and everything, and we'd love for you to come and ask some questions, meet everyone else, and we'll see you on the mezzanine. You can take the elevators down or the stairs, but the elevators are the easiest. So we'll see you there. Thank you.